Chapter 2342. The Battle King General's eyes were filled with anger. Everyone in Xianxia City knows that Xuanhuan is my son. Who dares to touch him? Looking at his son's injuries, the Battle King General was too lazy to blame the general's wife. He glared at the guards kneeling on the ground. Speak. Who was the one who dared to touch Xuan? Have you arrested that person yet? The guards felt wronged. They looked at Steward Fan who was lying on the ground covered in blood but no one cared about him. Then they looked at Xuanhuan who was lying on the bed. He only had a few scratches on his body, but he was surrounded by doctors and maids who were taking care of him. The contrast was too strong. However, as guards, they did not dare to say anything. They could only reply in a trembling voice, "Battle King General, he ran away." Bang! The guard who replied was sent flying by the Battle King General's kick. This kick was filled with raging xianxia. The guard's blood splattered everywhere as he was torn into pieces. The dozens of guards shivered and knelt on the ground stiffly. Even their breathing became cautious. Ran away? You let my son's man escape after he injured him? The Battle King General's eyes flashed with ruthlessness and anger. You are a bunch of trash. What's the use of me keeping you trash? Hearing the Battle King General's tone, it was obvious that he wanted to kill them. The guards were so scared that their bodies went soft. One by one they begged in panic. It's not that we let him escape, it's the young master. The young master did not allow us to touch that young lady. The young master has taken a fancy to that young lady. The young master did not dare to disobey the young master's words. Young lady? The Battle King General's angry face froze. What young lady? Battle King General, it's the young master. The young master has taken a fancy to a young lady on the street. That young lady has a fiery temper and has attacked the young master several times. We wanted to protect the young master and capture that young lady, but the young master, he did not allow us to touch that young lady, the guards explained while trembling with fear. They carefully observed the general's expression. One of the more courageous guards fiercely swallowed a mouthful of saliva and mustered up his courage to say, "General, the young prince, he is the publicly acknowledged genius child prodigy of the ingratiating Joy City. In the entire Northern Waves continent, I'm afraid that no one can easily injure the young prince. If the young prince was unwilling, the young prince wouldn't be injured." The War King General frowned. The guard's words made sense. He was well aware of Xuan'er's strength. To injure or leave a scar on Xuan'er's body, one had to be some kind of senior. However, a girl that could catch Xuan'er's eye must also be a young and beautiful girl. In that case, it was absolutely impossible for him to hurt Xuan'er. When the Warlord General heard this, his anger gradually dissipated. If Xuan'er was willing to do this for a girl, then it would just be a game for him. However, he was a little interested in that little girl. He knew that Xuan'er was the young prince. He actually dared to reject Xuan'er? How long would Xuan'er be interested in such a tough bone? The War King General felt that this was just a game. However, the madam of the general, who loved her son so much, did not think so. She suddenly stood up and strode to the door. Chapter 2343. Since Xuan'er likes that girl, just get someone to bring her back. The Warlord General waved his hand impatiently and returned to the bed, looking down at Xuanhuan. Just get her back? That little slut, I can't even bear to hurt my son. She dared to use Xuan'er's love to hurt my handsome face to this state. How can I let it go like this? The general's wife clenched her fists, her eyes filled with killing intent. All of you immediately draw a portrait of that little slut and search the entire city. You must bring her to the Warlord Mansion before dark. The general's wife and the Warlord General met and fell in love on the battlefield. The general's wife often followed the Warlord General to battle on the battlefield. Naturally, she had the aura of a general's wife. The guards were so scared that their legs turned to jelly. They hurriedly accepted the order and carefully retreated. Only after leaving Xuanhuan's courtyard did they heave a sigh of relief. Inside the room, a doctor was applying medicine to Xuanhuan. The Warlord General asked a few questions. He confirmed that Xuanhuan had indeed only suffered a few scratches. The general's wife almost cried when she heard this. At this time, a youth wearing a navy blue robe rushed in. He knelt on the ground. Warlord General, general's wife. I beg you, give my father justice. The Warlord General furrowed his brows and looked at the youth kneeling in front of him. The youth had already crawled to a corner. The Warlord General then realized that there was a small stretcher there. On the stretcher was the bloodied and injured Chief Steward Fan. Father, wake up. The youth lay on Chief Steward Fan's body and cried. The warlord general then remembered that Chief Steward Fan, who had been taking care of Yuan Kuang, had also been crippled. The youth was Chief Steward Fan's son, Fan Jianren. He kowtowed to the warlord general. "General, I beg you, save my father. Avenge my father. That slut not only crippled my father, she also injured the young lord. She doesn't put the warlord mansion in her eyes at all." Fan Jinren's eyes were filled with an ominous glint. He clenched his fists tightly and tears streamed down his face. Fan Jinren's appearance caused the warlord general's face to sink slightly. His tightly knit brows wrinkled a few times. Fan Jinren had been by Steward Fan's side since he was young, so he was very good at reading people's expressions. He immediately hammered his head and said in an angry tone, "General, this lowly one specially heard about the situation at that time. That little slut clearly knew the little prince's identity, but she kept on spouting wild words and humiliating the little prince. He even attacked the young prince several times. Not only that, but that little slut also injured the young prince's guard." Shouting at the little prince. Even when Princess Lingling came, she was seduced by the little slut and made Princess Lingling run away in anger. Princess Lingling is also involved in this matter? The warlord general's expression changed. Fan Jinren clenched his fists and raised his head. "It's absolutely true. Because Princess Lingling ran away in anger because of the young prince, my father. He has taken care of the young prince for 8 years. Naturally, he could see the young prince's love for that slut, so he took the initiative to capture that slut for the young prince. But I didn't expect." He kowtowed hard on the ground. "This lowly one begs the general to capture that slut, lest that slut hurt the young prince. Where did that young lady come from? How could she even injure Chief Steward Fan?" The warlord general narrowed his sinister eyes. Not only was he injured, but he was also seriously injured. He was completely crippled. Chapter 2344. Could it be? Was she targeting the King of War's residence? This thought made General Xuanhuan raise his guard against the girl. He called out a few names. 2 men dressed as soldiers immediately came in from the door. The general ordered in a deep voice, "After you get the portrait, quickly arrest that girl and bring her to the King of War's residence. I want to interrogate her personally." "Yes, General." The 2 men quickly retreated like the wind. A trace of ruthlessness flashed across Fan Jinren's eyes. His father had sacrificed so much for the King of War's residence, wholeheartedly and conscientiously. He did not expect the general's attitude towards his father to be so cold. If it was not because it involved Yuan Kuang. He was afraid the general would not take the matter of Chief Steward Fan being crippled seriously. Fan Jianren pursed his lips and suppressed his dissatisfaction towards the general. On the surface he put on a grateful expression. Just as he was about to speak, he heard the nervous voice of the general's wife. "Doctor, how is my son? Other than the abrasions on his face, where else is he injured?" Everyone's attention immediately focused on the doctor. The doctor shook his head. "It's nothing serious. I've already applied medicine. He should be fine after resting for half a month." "Are you sure you've checked carefully? Are you sure Kuanger is really fine? It's just a scratch. Why hasn't Kuang woken up yet?" The general's wife asked anxiously. "Madam," the general shouted, "I trust Dr. Lu's medical skills very much." Dr. Lu was the accompanying military doctor of the King of War. His medical skills were excellent, and his diagnosis and treatment were never wrong. The general's wife naturally knew this as well. But seeing Kuanger in a coma, she felt heartache and panic. Dr. Lu waved his hand. "The young prince might be tired, that's why he has been unconscious. Tell the servants to cook some porridge. When the young prince wakes up, we'll fill his stomach first." The general's wife hurriedly ordered the servants to go to the kitchen. Just as she sent Dr. Lu to the door, suddenly the maids exclaimed. The general's wife immediately turned around and saw Yuan Kuang sitting at the head of the bed. "Kuang?" The general's wife's eyes lit up and she rushed over happily. "Kuang, you're finally awake. Do you feel uncomfortable anywhere? Are you hungry?" Yuan Kuang didn't reply. He just sat there stiffly. The general's wife had already walked to the bedside. She stretched out her hand, wanting to caress Yuan Kuang's face. However, her hand was suddenly grabbed by Yuan Kuang. Kuanger? The general's wife felt a sharp pain in her wrist. In the next instant, Yuan Kuang jumped up from the bed. Such a big lump of fat, just like that, pressed the general's wife to the ground. The general's wife grimaced in pain. The back of her head hit the ground, causing the earth to shake. Before she could react, Yuan Kuang suddenly opened his mouth and bit the general's wife's wrist. That bite was extremely heavy. He bit off the flesh on the general's wife's hand. They could even see a large expanse of white bones. The general's wife struggled in pain, but she was afraid of hurting her son. "Master, quick, quick, bring Kuang," she shouted, wanting to help General Xuanhuan. Who would have thought that after Yuan Kuang took that bite, his whole body would hold the bloody meat in his mouth, and he would shake his head while drooling. An even more shocking scene followed closely behind. They saw Yuan Kuang, while shaking his head, his body was like a beast, shaking his buttocks continuously on the general's wife's body. Chapter 2345. Yuan Kuang's actions made everyone present turn pale with fright. The servants and maids all screamed and covered their eyes. In the next moment, Yuan Kuang's actions were even more unsightly. He was like an animal shaking his body. The lump of flesh in his mouth was flung away. He lowered his head and bit off a bloody piece of flesh from the general's wife's shoulder. The general's wife sucked in a breath of cold air. She wanted to struggle and push Yuan Kuang away. But she was afraid that her strength would be too great and hurt her son, so she didn't even dare to use profound qi. Another piece of flesh was bitten off by Yuan Kuang again. "Master, quickly pull Kuang air away." The general's wife frowned, her breathing somewhat chaotic. She often went to the battlefield, injuries were inevitable. Although it was painful to have a piece of flesh bitten off, it was still bearable. The only thing she couldn't bear was Yuan Kuang's actions, and in front of so many servant girls and manservants, just as the general's wife was about to cry out, the sound of cloth being torn was heard. The general's wife was startled and immediately screamed. Tearing, Yuan Kuang's hands constantly tore off the general's wife's clothes. No one knew what was going on. Yuan Kuang's nails were so sharp that they could easily tear the general's wife's clothes into pieces. In a short while, the general's wife's body was exposed to the air. Yuan Kuang was still shaking nonstop. In public, the manservants and maids couldn't even scream in fear at this moment. Each and every one of them was weak, kneeling on the ground. Their eyes were full of fear. Little Prince actually wanted to do that kind of thing to my mother, and in front of my father, they came across such a shocking secret. How could the general still let them live? Kuang air. General Xuanhuan recovered from his shock. His face was gloomy as he quickly walked forward, wanting to pull Yi Tian Kuang away from the general's wife. "General, wait." Dr. Lu quickly stopped General Xuanhuan. "Little Prince seems to have lost his mind. If you go to stop him, I'm afraid he will bite the general." General Xuanhuan withdrew his hand. What should I do? Look at young Prince's condition, young Prince." Dr. Lu had not finished his words. The general's wife screamed, "Ah!" He saw that the clothes on the general's wife had been completely torn apart. Yuan Kuang was like an animal in heat looking for a place. The general's wife was so frightened that she kept pushing Yuan Kuang. However, the lump of meat was like a mountain, crushing the general's wife to the point where she couldn't even breathe. But he couldn't bear to use his profound qi. How could he compare to the crazed Yuan Kuang? When General Warlord saw Yuan Kuang's actions, his expression turned extremely ugly. At this time he didn't care whether Yuan Kuang would attack him or not. "General, the young prince is obviously suffering from lust poison. Just find someone to cure him." Dr. Lu quickly finished his words. The Battle King General's footsteps halted. His gaze swept across Fan Jianren, who was closest to him. Suddenly his eyes dimmed. He bent down, grabbed Fan Jianren, and threw him towards Yuan Kuang. Yuan Kuang was fiercely smashed. He raised his bloodshot eyes and stared at Fan Jianren. Taking advantage of this opportunity, the general's wife flipped over, pulled the fine cloth to cover her body, and distanced herself from Yuan Kuang. Ah! Chapter 2346. Before he could stand up, Yuan Kuang pressed down on him. Just like the general's wife, he bit Fan Jianren's flesh. Tightly, he tore Fan Jianren's clothes. Fan Jianren struggled. A pill slid down his throat. He widened his eyes in horror and saw Elder Lu, who seemed to be full of righteousness, standing in front of him, sprinkling a bottle of medicine that emitted a strange fragrance into the surroundings. This taste was exactly the same as the taste of the pill he had just fed him. Fan Jianren's heart was alarmed and he was just about to escape, but he had no strength at all. Instead, an indescribable heat surged up. How could Fan Jianren not understand? The medicine that Dr. Lu had just fed him was lust poison. General's wife, let's go out first." Dr. Lu looked at the battle general. "Find some guards and seal this room." If these people are unable to alleviate the young prince's lust poison, then let all the women in the back residence in. This. How could the battle general not understand Dr. Lu's meaning? Kwang is still young, can he withstand this kind of consumption? The medicine I sprinkled around, other than lust poison, I also used the ingredients of the elemental chi pill to grind out the water. Just a drop of it and he will quickly recover his strength. Dr. Lu waved his hand. Young prince's innate talent is outstanding and his physical condition is different from ordinary people, there shouldn't be any problem. The battle general looked at Yuan Kuang who was lying on Fan Jinren's body in heat. He clenched his fists, carried his wife and turned to leave the room. There were more than 10 servants and maids in the room. They naturally heard Dr. Lu's words. Seeing that the battle general really left, they screamed in horror, begging the battle general to let them go. However, the door to the room was suddenly closed. A big lock was placed on the door. In the room, the screams continued. For a long time. In the alley, Yiqing Luo bandaged the woman's wound and was about to carry her back to the inn to look for Jun Qingwu. Just as she bent over, Yiqing Luo's expression suddenly turned cold. Her hand quickly grabbed Kitty Li's arm. The two of them retreated together. Swoosh! A sharp weapon streaked across from Yiqing Luo's direction as it pierced into the ground. The tip of the sharp weapon was still trembling. Yiqing Luo squinted her eyes slightly as she looked towards the direction where the sharp weapon came from and raised her voice. Who is it? Release Granny Boo. A woman's reprimanding voice came from afar, and soon after, a green lotus figure quickly flew over. The young lady swiftly stood in front of the woman as she straightened her back and stared fiercely at Yiqing Luo. The girl was about 14 or 15 years old. Her skin was white and tender and she was extremely delicate and pretty. She gave off a graceful and playful vibe like a girl next door. Especially that pair of watery eyes. Her eyes were extremely clear and just by looking at her, one couldn't help but like her. Grandma Boo. Yiqing Luo glanced at the woman behind the young lady. Is this your grandmother? She's not my grandmother but in my heart she's my grandmother. The woman's eyes grew fiercer and she took out another sharp weapon. You. How can you not know what's good for you? Sister is obviously trying to save that grandmother. You say she's your grandmother, you don't even know how to repay her kindness, and still dare to be fierce to sister. Kitty Li couldn't stand Yiqing Luo being insulted by others, so she immediately rushed forward and blocked Yiqing Luo's way. Chapter 2347. Kitty Li placed her hands on her waist as she snorted coldly. Otherwise what do you think we are going to do? Don't tell me we are going to lay our hands on an old lady? The lady's eyes widened as she stared at Yiqing Luo and Kitty Li for a while before she retracted her weapon doubtfully. You don't want to kill Grandma Boo, then you are the ones who almost caused Grandma Boo to be beaten to death by Little Prince? Kitty Li's face sunk. What nonsense are you sprouting? We didn't harm Grandma Boo. Alright. Yiqing Luo felt her head swelling as she watched the two young ladies chatting away. She grabbed Kitty Li's shoulder and pulled her behind her. Following that, she rubbed Kitty Li's head and smiled at the lady in front of her. We are indeed the people whom Grandma Boo saved earlier. The lady stared at Yiqing Luo as she snorted coldly. Then she ignored Yiqing Luo and Kitty Li. She turned around and squatted down as she gently touched Grandma Boo's face. Her fingers touched Grandma Boo's face for a while before the lady heaved a sigh of relief. She turned her head over and suspiciously sized Yiqing Luo up. You? No medical skills? A little. Yiqing Luo smiled faintly. Her gaze fell onto the lady's hand. Earlier, the lady's action of touching her face was absolutely not just a simple touch. It was as though she had probed the condition of Grandma Boo's body through the skin on her face. It was easy to tell that she had just treated Granny Boo's injuries. This lady was not simple. After confirming Grandma Boo's safety, the lady's enmity towards Yiqing Luo and Kitty Li was reduced. She carried Grandma Boo up. Her petite body carried Grandma Boo but it didn't seem to use much strength. Let's go to Grandma Boo's house first. The lady left a sentence and walked forward. Yiqing Luo paused for a moment before following up. Kitty Li puffed her cheeks as she put on an unhappy look. Sister, let's go look for Sister Wu. Upon mentioning Jun Qingwu, Yiqing Luo was stunned as she rubbed Kitty Li's head. Go to the inn and tell little Qingwu that I will be back in a while. Sister. Kitty Li's bright eyes widened as she pouted and whined. Kitty Li, sister, go with me. Kitty Li will not rush you back to the inn. Sister will not leave Kitty Li. Li will not rush you to go back to the inn. Yiqing Luo was tickled by Kitty Li's adorable look. If we don't head to the inn after some time, little Wu will be worried. By then when she comes out to look for us but can't find us, what should we do? Li's. Yu Li's face Li's and said Ling Li. However, there was still no news from her and Kitty Li. With Jun Wu's temperament, June to June. Jun Li Ching. Ling. Oh, Li. Kitty Li said that her baby was not happy, and that she needed her big sister to kiss, hug, and lift her up to be obedient. Li. King. She stretched out her hand and hugged Kitty Li, patting her lightly. Quickly go and find Xiao Qingwu, I will go back later. Kitty swords Li's wagging its little tail. Upon hearing Yi Qing Luo's words, it eagerly left the alley. Yi Qing Luo immediately followed the lady's footsteps. Maybe she knew that Yi Qing Luo had offended Yuan Kuang and couldn't walk on the main road. The lady led the way, which was a winding path. Not long later, they stopped in front of a dilapidated wooden house. The lady pushed the door and walked in. Chapter 2348. The wooden house wasn't spacious. The furnishings were neat and tidy. Yi Qing Luo's vision was fixed on the wall in the middle of the wooden house, on which hung two black and white portraits. On the portrait there was a young man and a young lady. In front of the portrait, there was a black wooden table with an incense burner. These two people are Grandma Boo's grandson and granddaughter. The lady placed Grandma Boo on the bed. Her voice was extremely gentle. She glanced sideways, looking at the two people in the portrait. The light in her eyes gradually became empty, as though she had recalled the past. They are very kind. To an outsider like me, they take good care of me. I really like the atmosphere in Grandma Boo's house. The lady's eyes were blurred, with a faint smile on her lips. She could tell she really liked this family very much. But, looking at the color of the two portraits, and the wooden table and incense burner in front of the portrait, Yi Qing Luo roughly guessed something. Sure enough, the lady took a deep breath, half squatted by the bed and held Grandma Boo's hand. They have already left Grandma Boo for 3 years. Is because of Yuan Kuang? Yi Qing Luo recalled that not long ago, Grandma Boo had pleaded for her. Her heart suddenly tightened slightly. The lady was stunned, her eyes widened, puzzled. How do you know? Because, in front of Yuan Kuang, I could tell that she was sincere in saving me and my sister. Yi Qing Luo closed her eyes. She must have seen me and thought of her granddaughter and grandson, and couldn't bear for us to die in Yuan Kuang's hands. Yes, Grandma Boo has always been a kind person. The lady's brows were filled with gentleness. I've heard about the situation at that time. Grandma Boo must have wanted to use her own life, in exchange for yours and your sister's. Yi Qing Luo kept silent. There was really such a good person in this world. They obviously didn't know each other. But at the critical moment, she resolutely chose to protect her. Luckily, none of you were injured, and that steward Fan also got what he deserved. The lady's voice suddenly became more ruthless. She raised her head, her eyes were filled with coldness. That kind of person can't be allowed to die so easily. Just like that, abolish his rights as a human. Turn him into a cripple and let others trample on him. Hearing the lady's indignant voice, Yi Qing Luo's lips twitched slightly. She would cripple Steward Fan. It was also because of this. That kind of person, how many heartless things had he done by Yuan Kuang's side? How many innocent people's blood had his hands been stained with? For General Steward Fan, death was a release. How could she let Steward Fan die so easily? Crippling him was just the beginning. Grandma Boo's grandson and granddaughter were tortured to death by Chief Steward Fan. The woman's voice was filled with hatred. She clenched her fists, her fingers slightly trembling. I want to take revenge for Brother Boo and Sister Boo, but Grandma Boo won't let me. She doesn't want me to offend the Yuan family because of her? Yi Qing Luo's eyes trembled slightly. She suddenly regretted that she had gone too easy on Steward Fan just now. That's right. The lady suddenly raised her head and looked at Yi Qing Luo, opening her mouth to call out her name, but was stunned momentarily. What's your name? Yi Qing Luo was just about to say her name, but on second thoughts, her name was too resounding in Nirvana realm because of the battle in West Continent. Pausing, she said, Yi Luo. Chapter 2349. Miao Yi released Grandma Boo's hand and walked towards Yi Qing Luo as she spoke with a grave expression. Miss Yi, General Battle King is not someone to be trifled with. Today you've crippled Steward Fan and injured Little Prince. General Battle King will absolutely not let this matter rest. She frowned. What are you going to do? No problem. Yi Qing Luo shook her head lightly. She came to the northern wave continent just to find the Jianghu clan. The only thing that offended the Yuan family was his face. She waited until she found the Jianghu aristocratic clan and asked them to suppress the goo poison for Zhan. She immediately left the northern wave continent. No matter what Yuan Kuang did, he couldn't pin the blame on her. Of course she could totally change her face. Yiqing Luo expressed, with the disguise technique in hand, the world is mine. You're from another continent, so you don't know what kind of status General Warlord has in the northern wave continent. If General Warlord wants to interfere in this matter, you won't be able to escape even if you grow wings. Miao Yi sat down heavily on a chair at the side and rested her chin on her hands. Her watery eyes flickered. Yiqing Luo looked at Miao Yi's extremely adorable dazed look as she shook her head helplessly. This girl's mood swings really quickly. Sometimes it was the wind and sometimes it was the rain. His thoughts were too jumpy. But, this kind of young lady, their days would be easy and happy. Suddenly Miao Yi slammed the table and stood up. Why don't you hide at my place for a while? My place is very safe, no one can find me. Yiqing Luo expressed that she really didn't want to hide. Miao Yi had already passionately leaned over to Yiqing Luo's side. No matter, don't stand on ceremony. By crippling Chief Steward Fan, you've avenged Brother Bu and Sister Bu. You can be considered my benefactor. Yiqing Luo was just about to reject. However, he heard a rough knock on the door. Yiqing Luo's ears twitched. There were about 20 people outside the door. Moreover, all of them were profounders. Miao Yi had already started walking towards the door. She said unhappily, "Who is it? Can you be quieter when you knock on the door? If I break it, do you guys know how to fix it?" Yiqing Luo's expression sunk slightly, and at the instant when Miao Yi opened the wooden door, her figure flashed and she rolled out from the open window at the corner of the wooden house. Miao Yi opened the wooden door. Neatly dressed guards stood in rows at the entrance, holding 2 scrolls in their hands. As soon as the door opened, the 2 guards barged into the wooden house. Miao Yi's expression changed and she suddenly stood in front of the 2 guards. They were obviously the guards of the Battle King's mansion. Were they here to capture Yi Luo? Move! A guard impatiently grabbed Miao Yi's shoulder and tried to push her away. What are you guys trying to do? Are you trying to force your way into a private residence? Miao Yi staggered a few steps from the shove and wanted to pounce on the 2 guards again. When he turned around, he discovered that aside from Grandma Bu, who was lying on the bed, there was no one else in the room. Her heart, which had been hanging in the air, sank. Fortunately, Yi Luo was not around. After confirming that Yi Luo was not in the wooden hut, Miao Yi regained her confidence. Chapter 2350. Miao Yi's words had successfully awed those 2 guards. Their expressions changed slightly. "Little girl, don't talk nonsense over there." Miao Yi sneered. "Looking at your stance, isn't this trespassing? How am I spouting nonsense? I'm telling you. My grandmother is bedridden, and if you disturb her, it might cause her to suffer a shock. If anything happens to her, this concerns the lives of the commoners. I wonder how everyone will spread this news?" The guards were rendered speechless by Miao Yi's eloquence. General Battle King cherished his own wings, and this was something that everyone in the Battle King's residence knew. After all, General Battle King was the #1 Battle King in the northern continent. His battle achievements were extremely illustrious and his reputation was well known. In this way, the royal family revered General Battle King but were suspicious of him. They were afraid that Battle King would harbor ill intentions and attempt to rebel. Because of this, General Battle King was unwilling to let his bad reputation spread. As for Yuan Kuang, his character could be said to be created by General Battle King on purpose. After all, Yuan Kuang was still young and he was a rare talent. So Yuan Kuang's tyrannical behavior was pardonable. But General Battle King only limited Yuan Kuang's tyrannical behavior to Xianxia City. Moreover, Yuan Kuang only did things like abducting women, killing people and robbing things. These things were seen by the royal family and they actually enjoyed it. With Yuan Kuang's interference, the royal family would more or less let down their guard towards the Battle King's residence. But the matter of them trespassing and oppressing the commoners was spread to the other continents. General Battle King would absolutely tear these guards apart. Miao Yi raised her brows and scoffed. "Say it quickly, don't disturb my grandmother's rest." The guards opened the scroll in their hands and spoke with a gloomy expression. "This is Little Duke's favorite concubine, do you know her?" After the scroll was opened, wasn't it Yiqing Luo who was drawn on it? Miao Yi's lips twitched as she looked like she wanted to vomit. Favorite concubine? Based on Yuan Kuang's prestige, he wanted Yi Luo to be his favorite concubine? Seeing the disgusted look on Miao Yi's face, the guards' faces darkened even more. I'm asking you a question. Do you know him or not? Miao Yi dug her ears. I don't know. Can you go now? You don't know him? The guard swept a cold glance at Miao Yi and stared suspiciously at her. You saw the expression of the person in the painting just now. It's not like you don't recognize him, the other guard sneered. Little girl, you should know the consequences of deceiving the Battle King's mansion. I didn't know her from the start. Chapter 2351. Yes. Two guards immediately walked to the bed. Stop. Miao Yi glared at the old guard, rushed to the bed and stopped him with open arms. My grandma is sick, how could she run to the street to plead for someone? Don't tell me you can't find her, so you want to capture her? The guards thought that their actions might affect the reputation of the warlord's mansion. Immediately, the hand that was about to grab the old woman stopped. The old guard's face darkened. Little girl, don't delay the warlord's mansion. You are using the warlord's mansion to bully us commoners. Alright, you can take my bedridden grandmother away. I want to see if your war king's mansion can cover the sky with one hand. Miao Yi got out of the way and took out a ball-shaped object from her pocket. Come. Take my grandma away, kill me. Let's see if you are faster or if I spread the news faster. You. The old guard didn't expect this girl to be so courageous, he couldn't even scare her. Instead they were shocked. This is the signal flare of the 3,000 peach blossom. Do you know where they are? Miao Yi smiled slyly. The old guard's face darkened. The 3,000 peach blossom was a small mercenary group. In this mercenary group there were only women. But this small mercenary group was spread all over the Nirvana realm. They collected all the secrets in the Nirvana realm that people didn't know. It was a place where information was traded. Unexpectedly, this young girl was related to the 3,000 peach blossom. If this signal flare was really fired, what happened today would be spread by the 3,000 peach blossom. The reputation of the warlord general. It would definitely be tarnished. The old guard secretly clenched his teeth. You said your grandma is sick, let me take a look. Miao Yi tightened her grip on the signal flare. Look. The old guard walked forward, the woman lying on the bed, her face pale, her head wrapped in gauze, still oozing blood. She was so weak that she could barely breathe. The old guard looked at the woman's forehead suspiciously. Miao Yi nervously tightened her grip on the signal flare, pretending to be calm. My grandma accidentally hit. Captain. The team ahead found the young prince's concubine. Suddenly, a guard outside the door spoke. The older guard's expression froze. Let's go. Go after them. The wooden house regained its original tranquility. Miao Yi heaved a sigh of relief and went forward to tuck Grandma Bu in. He walked to the door and peeked inside. Groups of guards swarmed forward to chase after them. She furrowed her brows and looked back at Granny Bu. After pondering for a moment, Zhang Xian prepared to leave the room. Suddenly, someone patted his back. Where are you going? Miao Yi shrieked in fright and turned around abruptly. Seeing that familiar face so close to her, she smiled happily and said, Yi Luo. Why are you here? Chapter 2352. We were originally on the same side. This sentence made the smile on Yi Qing Luo's lips warm up a little. This young lady was rather adorable. But they had just met not long ago. This meant that they had become on the same side. One must know that she had offended the Battle King's residence. Yi Luo, you're not intending to hide at my place? What if the people from the Battle King's residence come back? Miao Yi asked worriedly. Yi Qing Luo shook her head. If I don't want to, they won't be able to find me. Furthermore, how could she possibly hide? The tricks she had done on Yuan Kuang. It should be about time to proceed according to the plan. Thinking of those guards earlier, they anxiously tried to catch her expression. Yi Qing Luo's lips twitched as she revealed a strange smile. Miao Yi's heart thumped when she saw that. She felt that. Yi Luo's smile was beautiful, but it looked horrifying. She felt that Yi Luo was planning something. Something big. I still have friends at the inn. If I don't go back now, they will be worried when they hear the rumors in the city. Yi Qing Luo looked at Granny Bu, who was lying on the bed, and took out a medicine bottle from her bosom. Take a pill in the morning and evening, take it for 3 consecutive days and you will be fine. Miao Yi received the medicine bottle blankly. You are leaving? Yi Qing Luo looked at the young lady with bright eyes and couldn't help but smiled as she stretched out her hand and patted her delicate shoulder. Can't bear to part with me? Miao Yi immediately lowered her head as her eyes fluttered around. How could I not bear to part with you? I just got to know you. This adorable look made Yiqing Luo's heart warm up. She was used to seeing self-reliant devil-classes students. Used to seeing those scheming and various kinds of brainless scumbags. And to see this kind, without any schemes, easily trusting others, liking someone and treating the other party as her friend without any qualms. This kind of young lady couldn't be said to be silly. It could only be said that her world was extremely clean, extremely pure. Earlier, didn't you say that you and I are on the same side? Trying to cut off all relations with me so quickly? Yiqing Luo teased as she bent down and stared into her eyes. Indeed, Miao Yi's face instantly turned red. I didn't mean that. Done. Yiqing Luo's hand covered Miao Yi's head and rubbed it. If there's a chance, we'll meet again. Take good care of Grandma Boo. Saying that, Yiqing Luo withdrew her hand. She climbed out of the window in the corner. Her red skirt created a beautiful sunset glow in the air. Miao Yi stood rooted to the ground in a daze. She stared blankly at the figure outside the window, waving at her before leaving. His heart inexplicably began to beat wildly. She stiffly raised her hand and slowly moved it to her head. Her slender palm covered the place where Yiqing Luo had touched earlier. He closed his eyes slightly. Yi Luo's hands were so soft and warm, it was just a light touch. She could actually feel the warmth of it. Is this how Big Sister feels? At the corner of her eyes, a tear seemed to roll down and disappear in a flash. After leaving the wooden house, Yiqing Luo speedily headed towards the biggest inn. Kitty Li would follow Jun Qingwu's scent. She and Kitty Li could sense each other, so she would know clearly where Jun Qingwu was. Yiqing Luo didn't walk through the main entrance but swiftly flipped over and went to the second floor of the inn. Passing through a few rooms, she stopped at the room in the corner. You're here. Jun Qingwu's cold voice rang in the room. Chapter 2353. Sister. It's really you? Kitty Li's eyes shone brightly. She quickly threw herself into Yiqing Luo's arms and hugged her, whimpering, Kitty was so worried about you. But Sister Wu didn't let Kitty go out to look for you. Yiqing Luo rubbed the kitten's head and carried her into the room. Jun Qingwu sat by the wooden table. She didn't even lift her eyelids as she spoke indifferently. How long has it been and you've already caused such a huge trouble? You really have no scruples. Apparently, she had already heard of her glorious deeds in Xianxia City. Yiqing Luo released Kitty Li and sat opposite Jun Qingwu as she leisurely poured herself a cup of tea. No choice, my charm is too strong, trouble always comes out to look for me. This trouble is the Battle King's residence. Jun Qingwu raised her beautiful eyes and glanced at Yiqing Luo coldly. The status of the Battle King General in the northern continent is not lower than the Patriarch of Xianxia sect. As long as the Battle King General says a word, not to mention Xianxia City, even the entire northern continent, you can only be sneaky and unable to appear openly in the northern continent's territory. Yiqing Luo leaned lazily on the wooden table. At most, I'll just change my face. If you change your face then. What about this kitty? Jun Qingwu glanced at the sticky Kitty Li standing beside Yiqing Luo. You also want to change her face. Kitty Li didn't disguise herself from the start. If Yiqing Luo changed her face, then it would be necessary to disguise Kitty Li. But, as a beast, Kitty Li couldn't stand having something smeared on her face. She wouldn't be able to control the beast's blood and wipe off everything on her face. That's not necessary. Yiqing Luo leaned back. Very soon, things will be over. Jun Qingwu raised her brows. You? What did you do? Yiqing Luo mysteriously hooked her lips and didn't say a word. The next day, after Yiqing Luo woke up, Kitty Li had already brought back the news she had inquired. Yesterday's matter was getting more and more serious. And, according to rumors, after Xianxia City's #1 prodigy Little Prince was carried back to the residence yesterday. He was already bewitched. Although the matter of being bewitched had been suppressed very well, and no rumors had spread. However, he roughly knew. After Yuan Kuang woke up, his personality changed greatly. It was said that Yuan Kuang's courtyard was overflowing with the thick smell of blood. Hearing this news, Yiqing Luo nodded in satisfaction. Looks like the experiment is considered a success. Experiment? Jun Qingwu knew that Yiqing Luo had her own plans, and upon hearing Yiqing Luo's tone, her interest was piqued. What did you do to Yuan Kuang? You want to know? Yiqing Luo raised her brows and asked with a smile. Jun Qingwu remained expressionless. Then, come with me to the warlord's mansion. Yiqing Luo's body softened as she fell onto Jun Qingwu's shoulder. Not only can we watch a good show, we might She paused and did not continue. He just smiled, then turned around and looked at Kitty Lee. Kitty, what about you? Stay in the inn and continue to gather information for us. Kitty Lee's joyful expression suddenly collapsed. Sister, are you going to abandon Kitty Lee again? Not abandon you, but this is the new task that sister has given you. Yi Qing Luo pinched Kitty Lee's trembling ears. Also, do you remember the smell of that lady last night? Chapter 2354. If you're late and we haven't returned, you can go find that girl. Yi Qing Luo pinched Kitty Lee's cheek. Her name is Miao Yi and she seems to be friends with Peach. Ask her how to contact Peach. Yesterday she saw the 3000 Peach Blossom signal flare in Miao Yi's hand. If not for his close relationship with Peach Blossom 3000, it was impossible for Miao Yi to have that flare. If Peach was willing to help investigate the Miaogu clan, she would be able to return to the West Continent as soon as possible and help Long Yunjian suppress the parasite poison as soon as possible. Kitty Lee was extremely unwilling, but she wasn't willing to reject Yi Qing Luo's request. In the end, he could only use a resentful gaze to send Yi Qing Luo and Jun Qingwu off. War King's mansion. The atmosphere was lifeless, and the maids and manservants who came and went had grave expressions. Every one of them walked cautiously and fearfully. Perhaps the atmosphere was too depressing. The guards of the warlord's mansion had loosened up quite a bit. Yi Qing Luo and Jun Qingwu easily entered the Battle King's residence. Jun Qingwu peeked through a crack in the darkness and saw the servants coming and going. She raised her eyebrows. What did you do to Yuan Kuang? The entire Battle King's mansion is affected. You'll know soon enough. Yi Qing Luo blinked her eyes as she gave a devilish smile. Let's go take a look at Yuan Kuang's courtyard first. It was not difficult to find Yuan Kuang's courtyard. The oppressive atmosphere in the Battle King's mansion was caused by Yuan Kuang. This meant that something had happened to Yuan Kuang. The place with the most people and the noisiest place was Yuan Kuang's courtyard. After a short while, the two of them arrived at Yuan Kuang's courtyard. People came and went in the courtyard, and the thick smell of blood filled the air. Yi Qing Luo and Jun Qingwu stopped at the corner of Yuan Kuang's bedroom. Outside the bedroom, people came and went, all of them horrified servants. Not far away was the general's wife, who was being supported by the maids and nannies. The general's wife's face was filled with pain and worry. From time to time, she would grab the maidservant beside her and ask about the situation in the room. Every time she asked, the expression on the general's wife's face darkened. Banging sounds could be heard coming from the locked bedroom door. There were also faint screams of men and women crying for help. This lasted for about half an hour. The voices in the bedroom gradually stopped. The general's wife was overjoyed and immediately sent her servant to check on the situation. The maidservant's face was pale, but she did not dare to disobey the general's wife. He had no choice but to move closer to the bedroom. Jun Qingwu, who had been silent for half an hour, was already impatient. Chapter 2355. That ferocious look made him look like an animal that was about to devour flesh and blood. Blood dripped down from his mouth. No matter how calm Jun Qingwu was, she was stunned when she saw the scene in the room. Ah! The servant girl screamed and tried to escape. One of his hands held the maidservant's wrist tightly. The servant girl was dragged into the room. Yuan Kuang's mouth was full of blood and his face was bloodthirsty. He quickly tore off the servant girl's dress. Quick! Lock the door, go to the backyard, find some people and throw them in. The general's wife hurriedly ordered the people around her. The guards immediately rushed up and locked the door again. A few more guards rushed to Yuan Kuang's backyard to catch some people. The whole yard was in a panic again. The general's wife pointed at the closed door of the bedroom. Tears streamed down her face as she thought of what she had just seen. It's been a day and a night, why don't they stop? Where is Dr. Liu? Where is Dr. Liu? The general's wife cried hoarsely and her body softened and fell to the ground. The servant girl and the nannies immediately helped her up. The general's wife cried and cried until her vision turned black and she fainted. General's wife. General's wife. The nannies were also panicking. They carried the general's wife on their backs and left the yard in a flurry. The guards caught a dozen women who were desperately crying and begging for mercy. Those women were extremely beautiful. Their cries were indeed heart-wrenching. But the guards did not have the slightest bit of compassion for the fairer sex. After the guards opened the door, the dozen women saw the bloody scene in the room and screamed crazily. There were also a few women who directly pushed the women beside them into the room, broke free from the restraints of the guards and fled outside. But they were quickly stopped by the guards. How could the women be reconciled? As he wrestled with the guards, he was pushed into the room along with the guards. The other guards immediately came forward and quickly locked the door again. They did not care about the other guards who were also locked in. After doing all these things, the people outside the yard breathed a sigh of relief. For them, as long as the door was locked, they would be safe. As for what would happen inside the door, it did not matter. An extremely miserable scream came from inside the house again. In the corner, Jun Qingwu leaned against the wall with a gloomy expression. This is your method of punishment? Yi Qingluo's brows rose as she gave a calm smile. Xiao Wu can't bear to do it? Those are all innocent people. Jun Qingwu's face darkened as she recalled the scene inside the door. But Yi Qingluo crossed her arms over her chest, leaned against the wall and laughed lightly. No one is absolutely innocent. Jun Qingwu frowned. Yi Qingluo laughed softly. Do you think? After entering the Battle King's residence, who else can maintain their innocence and purity? It was just a short observation. Yi Qingluo could almost ascertain that the people in the Battle King's residence were all selfish and only for themselves. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been so carefree as he watched people being thrown into the house to die one by one. What are you trying to do? Jun Qingwu's expression became increasingly cold as she listened to the mournful cries coming from the bedroom. Yi Qingluo tilted her head as her index finger pressed against her lower jaw. You will know in a while, it should be about time. Jun Qingwu's fingers tightened. Yi Qingluo's lips curled as her lips twitched disapprovingly. Chapter 2356. After the general's wife left. The servants and guards in the courtyard also couldn't suppress the fear in their hearts. They started to discuss this matter. After Xuanhuan went crazy yesterday, he had been locked in his bedroom. According to Dr. Lu's account, the 30 people thrown in had all died in the bedroom in less than 2 hours. Xuanhuan's symptoms only increased and did not decrease. Helplessly, Dr. Lu could only continue to use medicine to maintain Xuanhuan's physical strength and constantly send people in to reduce Xuanhuan's hunger. But Xuanhuan became more and more brutal. The speed at which he tortured people to death was also getting faster and faster. In just a day and a night's time, there were at least 300 corpses in Xuanhuan's bedroom. Until now, Xuanhuan was still the same as yesterday, crazy without any signs of relief. Just like that, the two of them remained silent for about half an hour. A clamor could be heard from outside the courtyard. The general's wife, who had fainted earlier, walked in with a pale face with the help of a wet nurse. Behind her was the tall and sturdy Battle King general in a black robe. The most eye-catching thing was the tall, slender, and beautiful woman standing beside the War King general. The lady was beautiful and had a faint arrogance on her face. She didn't lose the slightest bit of her temperament beside the Battle King general. She was dressed in a green long dress, looking elegant, dignified, and noble. After entering the courtyard, the surrounding servants bowed respectfully. That lady took a few steps forward. Her gaze was fixed on the locked door. Miss Miao, I'll have to trouble you to make a trip. The Battle King slowly caught up with the lady and said in a low voice. You? Yi Qingluo was a little surprised in the dark. The Battle King general actually used you to address a young lady. It could be seen that the lady's identity was absolutely not simple. This is your purpose? Jun Qingwu's expression changed slightly when she saw the lady. Yi Qingluo raised her brows, her long and narrow eyes curved. So, this lady is the Miao family's Miss Miao? Jun Qingwu's eyes were covered with frost. If you say you don't know, I don't believe you. Before this, I wasn't sure if she was a member of the Miao family, but your reaction tells me that she is indeed the young miss of the Miao family. Yi Qingluo put her arm around Jun Qingwu's shoulder. Xiao Wu looks like you and the Miaogu family are old acquaintances. Jun Qingwu's shoulders twitched, but he wasn't able to shake Yi Qingluo's hand off. She crossed her arms in front of her chest and said with a cold expression, although Miss Miao has appeared, it won't be easy to convince her to suppress Long Yunzhan's parasite poison. Regardless of whether the Miaogu clan and I are old acquaintances or not, you only need to remember one thing. I will not help you. Yi Qingluo tightened her grip on Jun Qingwu's shoulders as she smiled at her but didn't say a word. Jun Qingwu was right. This was indeed her goal. The Battle King's mansion was the most famous family in the city. The Miaogu clan was another legend of the Northern Wave continent. As a grand faction and grand clan, the Battle King Manor and the Miaogu clan would definitely have some relations. She had poisoned Xuanhuan. This was the upgraded version of the aphrodisiac used on Lung Feng Hua. Unless It was an alchemist or a doctor who was even more powerful than the ghost doctor. Otherwise, there was absolutely no way to discover the strange situation on Yuan Kuang's body. Initially, everyone thought that Yuan Kuang had been poisoned by an ordinary poison. Chapter 2357. Naturally, the War King General would suspect that this was no ordinary poison. If General Battle King and the Miaogu family had some dealings, Yuan Kuang's strange situation, General Battle King would definitely think of goo poison. For his own son, General Battle King would definitely invite someone from the Miaogu family who knew about goo poison. Yi Qing Luo admitted it. From the beginning, after she knew Yuan Kuang's identity, she had already set up this plan, using the Battle King's residence to lure out the Miaogu family. The smell of blood is so strong? Miao Rongrong frowned slightly, showing a displeased expression. Your son has committed too much evil this time. That's why I've specially invited Miss Miao out of the stronghold this time in hopes that Miss Miao can help my son. Take a look at what's going on. Warlord led Miao Rongrong to the locked door. He looked at the guard at the side. Open the door. Inside the room, the woman's screams and painful groans were still ringing. The guard's trembling hand took out the key. General? Little prince is still enjoying himself. If you open the door and hurt Miss Miao, it's all right. Miao Rongrong said indifferently. Her beautiful face was calm. The guard looked at Battle King. Seeing Battle King nodding, he could only suppress the fear in his heart and opened the door with his trembling hand. Miao Rongrong glanced at the blood seeping out of the door and calmly pushed the door open. A strong smell of blood came rushing in. The entire bedroom was filled with bloody corpses. Yuan Kuang grabbed a woman and pressed her on a pile of corpses, like a beast, sitting in the most primitive position. The woman had already stopped breathing. Miss Miao, please forgive me. Since yesterday when my son was brought back to the Battle King's residence, he has been like this. No one can stop him. Battle King looked at the changes in Miao Rongrong's expression, feeling a little embarrassed. After all, Miao Rongrong was just an 18-year-old young lady. She had never been engaged. But to see such a... Unexpectedly, Miao Rongrong's expression was very calm, as if she did not care about Yuan Kuang's beastly behavior. Since yesterday at least 16 hours, he has been like this? Miao Rongrong frowned and asked casually. The war monarch nodded. Miao Rongrong lifted her foot and was about to enter the room. But the blood and corpses on the ground made her retract her foot. A look of disgust appeared on her face. Just as the War King was about to instruct someone to lure Yuan Kuang out, a voice suddenly rang out. He saw Miao Rongrong standing at the door with her wrist raised. A bug about the size of half a palm suddenly emerged from Miao Rongrong's palm. Miao Rongrong shook her palm. The bug rapidly charged toward Yuan Kuang and burrowed into his nostrils. The War King's heart tightened. Young Mistress Miao, check his body to see if there are any other goo worms, Miao Rongrong explained impatiently. After a while, the insect returned to Miao Rongrong's palm. The warlord immediately asked anxiously, Young Mistress Miao, what's the result? Has my son been poisoned by a goo? Miao Rongrong touched the insect's back, and a strange look flashed across her beautiful face. No, there are no traces of the insect poison in the young prince's body. No. Was Kuang really poisoned? The Battle King's expression changed dramatically as he looked at Yuan Kuang, who was still in the room. Chapter 2358. Battle King's face was ashen, his tall and muscular body swayed slightly. He covered his eyes with his palms, as if he could not digest Miao Rongrong's words. Even Miao Gu tribe's young lady Miao was helpless. His Kuang, would he always be like this? No matter how strong his Kuanger's body was, it could not withstand such consumption. If he kept relying on Dr. Lu's medicine to support Kuang Er's stamina, as time passed, Kuang Er's body would become weaker. It is not impossible to restore the young duke to normal. Miao Rongrong looked at Battle King's dejected expression and showed an arrogant smile. Battle King's body stiffened. He put down his hands and looked at Miao Rongrong. Young lady Miao, are you serious? Can you really restore my son to normal? Miao Rongrong smiled arrogantly. But, General Battle King, you have to tell me who did this to the young duke before I can use the right goo. Use goo? Battle King was startled. He had a clear conflict with these two words. Miao Rongrong glanced sideways at the Battle King and explained with a smile, I'll use the goo to fight poison with poison. Once the poison in Little Duke's body is devoured by the goo, I'll summon the goo back. It won't affect Little Duke's body at all. but a trace of disdain flashed in her eyes. This General Battle King looked down on the gu of their Miao Gu tribe, but at the same time feared their gu. Since he looked down on them, he was afraid. He still had the face to ask Miao tribe for help. If not for her grannies forcing her to build a good relationship with the people of Battle King Manor to prepare for the selection of Saintess in the future, she would not waste her energy to save that kind of disgusting little prince. Although she felt disdain in her heart. But Miao Rongrong did not show any displeasure on her face. Hearing that it would not affect Yuan Kuang's body, Battle King's worried heart also calmed down. Good. Young Lady Miao, I will have to trouble you. Battle King was so excited that he did not notice the disdain in Miao Rongrong's eyes. Miao Rongrong raised her hand and pointed inside the house. She looked at Battle King with an arrogant expression. General Battle King, please get someone to calm the young duke down. In this state, I can't use my gu. This commanding and condescending manner caused the War King to frown slightly. However, in the next instant, the warlord hurriedly nodded and looked behind him. Dr. Lu. Dr. Lu took out a medicine bottle from his sleeve, stepped on the corpses on the ground, and approached Yuan Kuang. Yuan Kuang suddenly flung the woman in his arms away and reached out to grab the other woman, who was so frightened that her body went limp. He stuffed her under his body. Dr. Lu seized the opportunity and slammed the bottle in his hand on Yuan Kuang's head. The powder was sprinkled. Yuan Kuang rolled his eyes, and his restless body suddenly calmed down. However, the bulging muscles and the parts that couldn't be reduced still couldn't be removed. Put on the young prince's clothes and carry him to the guest courtyard next door, the warlord ordered in a deep voice. The guards were still a little afraid. He cautiously moved closer. Seeing that Yuan Kuang had no reaction, he anxiously lifted Yuan Kuang up. After a while, everyone moved to the next courtyard. As for Yuan Kuang's courtyard, Battle King gave the order and directly burned it down. Yiqing Luo pulled Jun Qingwu and followed closely next door. In the bedroom, Yuan Kuang's fat body was squeezed on the wooden bed. He was already wrapped in a loose sleeping robe. But he wore his clothes and covered himself with the quilt. Chapter 2359. Miao Rongrong was after all a lady. Battle King was somewhat embarrassed. He lowered his head slightly and said, "Miss Miao, I'll leave my son to you. I'll go out and wait for news." After saying that, he immediately walked out of the room. Miao Rongrong didn't hesitate. She walked to the bedside and released her gu worm. The palm-sized worm slowly drilled into Yuan Kuang's nose. General's wife's heart trembled as tears welled up in her eyes. She saw Miao Rongrong walk to the side and sat down. She immediately walked to Miao Rongrong's side and lowered her voice. "Miss Miao, my Kuang, will he be all right? I will help him clear the poison in his body, but I can't guarantee anything else." Miao Rongrong leaned back gracefully and smiled faintly. General's wife heard the ridicule in Miao Rongrong's tone. There was anger in her heart, but she had no choice but to seek help from Miao Rongrong to save her son. General's wife suppressed her anger and asked worriedly, "Miss Miao means Kuang has other problems besides the poison in his body?" Miao Rongrong only smiled slightly and didn't answer. This kind of person who grew up in the palm of his parents' hands, how could he not have problems? This weight, this body shape, was the biggest problem that affected his health. Moreover, under the long-term pampering of General Battle King and General's wife, Yuan Kuang ate and drank with no restraint at all. In addition, his private life was chaotic. How could there be no problems? Miao Rongrong's arrogant look made General's wife feel disgusted. Miao Rongrong didn't want to bother with her, and she was too lazy to ask Miao Rongrong again. She turned to Dr. Lu and repeated what Miao Rongrong said earlier. Dr. Lu's expression was grave. As a doctor, Dr. Lu naturally understood the meaning of Miao Rongrong's words. But in the dark, Yiqing Luo squinted her eyes as her gaze wandered on Yuan Kuang. "Can her gu worm cure your poison?" Jun Qingwu frowned slightly and asked coldly. Yiqing Luo glanced sideways at her and smiled. "Yes. If the poison is cured, then how are you going to get close to the Miao family?" Jun Qingwu couldn't understand what Yiqing Luo was thinking about. Yiqing Luo shrugged her shoulders. "This is the first step for me to get close to her. Don't you feel that eldest young Miss Miao is very interested in me now?" Jun Qingwu, it was not just the Miao family. Even the entire Battle King's Manor's people were probably extremely interested in Yiqing Luo. "I don't think you can convince that Miao family member." Jun Qingwu glanced at Miao Rongrong's face. Of course, not everyone is like Xiao Wu Wu, cold on the outside but warm on the inside. Yi Qingluo leaned her body on Jun Qingwu, as she smiled and went close to her ear to tease. Jun Qingwu's body stiffened and the expression on her face froze. Yi Qingluo laughed even more joyfully. As for whether that eldest young Miss Miao will be convinced by me, or whether she's willing to accompany me to save Zhan, that's not something that I need to consider. In any case, no matter what that Miss Miao thinks, the final outcome will be decided by me. Her words were extremely ostentatious, but it was filled with an irrefutable charm. Jun Qingwu's frozen expression unknowingly loosened up a little. She looked at Yi Qingluo and after some time, a complicated emotion flashed past her eyes. Miao Rongrong's expression was slightly dignified. She looked at Dr. Lu and pursed her lips. This kind of thing, it's not convenient for a woman like me to say anything. If the general has any questions, you can ask Dr. Lu. Dr. Lu knows better than me what will happen next. The battle monarch's tall body suddenly stiffened. He seemed to understand the meaning of Miao Rongrong's words. Miao Rongrong slightly nodded at him. General, I will go back to the village to rest. If you find any traces of the person who poisoned the young prince, please remember to inform me. Without waiting for the War King's reply, he walked past him and continued forward. Chapter 2361. After Miao Rongrong walked out of the courtyard, she stopped in her tracks. She turned back and fixed her eyes on the direction of Yuan Kuang's room. The expression in her eyes became increasingly complicated. She looked for a long time before she suddenly raised her palm and lowered her eyes. The palm-sized venomous insect in her palm was lying motionless with all four legs facing the sky. The hand hanging by the side of her body curled up into a tight fist. Who was the person who poisoned Yuan Kuang? The venomous insect that she had spent 10 years to cultivate was actually unable to withstand the poison in Yuan Kuang's body. After her venomous insect had swallowed the poison in Yuan Kuang's body, it actually died. The venomous insect that she had spent 10 years cultivating died just like that. Miao Rongrong's eyes flashed a trace of ruthless murderous intent. She clenched her palm. That black venomous insect broke into pieces in her palm. Immediately, she took a deep breath, raised her head high and quickly walked out of the Battle King's residence. In the dark, Yi Qingluo yawned lazily. The show is over, Xiao Wu, let's go back to the inn. Jun Qingwu cast a disdainful glance at the young lady who was clinging onto her. Not going to follow the Miao family? Why should I follow her? She wants to see me now. Yi Qingluo raised her brows. The initiative is in my hands. Just as Yi Qingluo had guessed, Yuan Kuang's poison was indeed cured. But, the poison was cured. But Yuan Kuang was completely ruined. For a full 16 hours, Yuan Kuang was like a madman, venting out the poison in the Beast Valley. Even with Dr. Lu's medicine to replenish his energy. But, to Yuan Kuang, who was still a growing young man, it was a huge consumption. Moreover, Yi Qingluo's lust poison was not something that could be replenished by ordinary vitality medicine. Yuan Kuang could say that this 16 hours of madness was the last madness he had ever experienced in his life. He had lost the right to be crazy. He had also lost the ability to reproduce. This news was a huge blow to General Battle King and his wife. When the general's wife heard the news, she fainted on the spot. The War King also seemed to have aged several decades. He sat in his chair, unable to come to his senses for a long time. They had been fighting on the battlefield all year round, and their bodies had long been exposed to the wind and rain all year round. Their injuries, big and small, had more or less been affected. In this life, Yuan Kuang was the only son he had. His son had been a genius in cultivation since he was young. Even the Heavenly Academy's class of gods had sent an invitation to Yuan Kuang. Yuan Kuang had always been their hope, their pride. But, Yuan Kuang had actually lost the ability to procreate. Didn't this mean that their Yuan family was going to have no more descendants? It's all that woman. Chapter 2362. And at this moment, the main character who turned Qinghua City upside down was sitting leisurely in an extremely luxurious room. Yi Qingluo leaned lazily against the wall, her fair hand holding a white jade wine cup. She sipped the wine in the cup lazily and slowly closed her eyes, as if she was enjoying it. Qingluo, your portrait has already spread throughout the entire northern continent, are you sure? You still don't intend to go out? A clear female voice came from the opposite of Yi Qingluo. Yi Qingluo opened her eyes, her charming eyes swept past the lady, and leisurely raised her head and drank a cup of wine. No hurry. You may not be in a hurry, but I am. The lady rolled her eyes and leaned back on the chair. General Battle King and his wife are about to break the door of my Flower 3000 division. Little Tao, don't panic, don't panic. Yiqing Luo put down the wine cup lazily, and her soft body fell onto the table. Her silky black hair cascaded down. It set off the young lady's not considered stunning, but delicate and lovely face, all the more enchanting. The lady sitting opposite Yiqing Luo was the leader of Peach Blossom 3000 Division, Tao Tao. Although Tao Tao was also a student of the Heavenly Academy. But her reputation of Peach Blossom 3000 Division had long been spread far and wide in the entire Nirvana realm. Regarding the matter of Peach Blossom 3000 Division, Tao Tao could apply for leave anytime she needed. The treatment was similar to the two brothers of the Mu family. After all, the Heavenly Academy would receive the latest news from Peach Blossom 3000 Division on the various major academies in the Nirvana realm every 3 months. This time, Tao Tao happened to be investigating in the vicinity of the northern continent. She received a signal flare from Miao Yi. Tao Tao came personally. She didn't expect to meet Kitty Li. Kitty Li was here, so Yiqing Luo would definitely be here too. That was why the scene was happening. Yiqing Luo led Kitty Li and Jun Qingwu without hesitation to stay in Tao Tao's restaurant. This restaurant on the surface was a restaurant, but in the basement of the restaurant was the base of Peach Blossom 3000 Division in the northern continent. Because of this, no matter how the people from the Battle King's residence or even the royal family interfered, and no one was able to discover Yiqing Luo's existence. What on earth are you planning? Peach's clear eyes stared at Yiqing Luo resentfully, propping up her chin with one hand. Yiqing Luo smiled mysteriously. Heaven's secrets cannot be revealed, also your head. Sitting by the side, Jun Qingwu, who had a cold expression all along, stood up, raised her hand and knocked on Yiqing Luo's head. I've wasted my time sitting here with you for 3 days. Are you in a hurry to find the Miao family or are you not? If you don't want to save Long Yunzhan, then let's return to the West Continent right now. Don't waste everyone's time. Yiqing Luo hugged her head in pain as she shrunk into the chair. Xiao Wu Wu, don't be so agitated. Didn't you say that Zhan would not have any accidents in the next 3 months? So, you're going to waste 3 months like this? Jun Qingwu looked at her coldly. Yiqing Luo's curly long lashes fanned as she suspiciously raised her head, gazing at Jun Qingwu's cold face. Xiao Wu Wu, what on earth are you so anxious about? Jun Qingwu frowned. It's not that I'm anxious about anything, I just don't want to waste time. As she said that, she sat down. I don't know how on earth did your character attract the Overlord's attention. Chapter 2363. Jun Qingwu turned her head away, indicating that she didn't want to waste her saliva on Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo smiled and poured herself another glass of wine. Peach held her chin and glanced back and forth between the two of them, tilted her head and said, The things you asked me to investigate, although I can't investigate 100%, but there is at least 60% of the information, do you want it? Yiqing Luo's hand paused slightly and looked at Peach with a smile. What do you want in exchange? Peach raised her chin in the direction of Jun Qingwu. I am very interested in her, exchange with her information. My hands are tied. Yiqing Luo shrugged. Little Wu Wu is very mysterious, if you want her information you can only interview her yourself. Peach waved an envelope in her hand. Don't want it? Yiqing Luo thought that Peach had learned bad things. She used to follow behind her so admiringly, calling her classmate Yi, but now that they were familiar, she turned her back on her. She glanced sideways and looked at Jun Qingwu, who had a cold and indifferent expression on her face. The only thing I know is that this beauty is not from the Nirvana realm. If I'm not wrong, she should be from the upper realm. Jun Qingwu still had no expression or action. But Yiqing Luo was keenly aware that Jun Qingwu's delicate body had stiffened for a moment. Yiqing Luo smiled and continued, and her status in the upper realm is very high, she should be from a large family in the upper realm. Peach's eyes widened suddenly. Her clear and beautiful eyes blinked excitedly. She stood up and went to Jun Qingwu's side. He was like a koala bear, desperately circling around Jun Qingwu. Upper realm. People from the upper realm. No wonder I couldn't find any information about you. Oh my god, I actually met someone from the upper realm. Peach excitedly clasped her hands together, her eyes were almost bursting with stars. This enthusiastic attitude made Jun Qingwu unable to adapt to it and frowned. Peach was not afraid but even more excited. People from the upper realm are so beautiful. Even if they frown, they are breathtakingly beautiful. Yiqing Luo opened her mouth silently. She's also in disguise now. The stars in Peach's eyes became brighter and brighter. You are still so beautiful after changing your appearance. You must be even more beautiful in person. My goddess, can you tell me more about the upper realm later? Yiqing Luo expressed. Aren't you my little fangirl? She's become Xiao Wu's little fangirl so quickly. Where am I? Peach didn't even look at her. He directly threw the letter in his hand towards Yiqing Luo. Soon after, he wholeheartedly began to pester Jun Qinggu. Yiqing Luo received the envelope, a heavy stack of information. Yiqing Luo leaned back on the chair in satisfaction and began to flip through the envelope in her hands. There were about a dozen pieces of paper in the envelope. Records of the Miaogu clan were written on it. Some of the things that outsiders or very few people knew were written on it. The Miaogu aristocratic clan was a nickname given by outsiders. In fact, the Miaogu clan was only a Miao village that specialized in using gu. There were not many Miao people. Their village only had about 3,000 people at most. And there were no more than 1,500 people who could skillfully use the gu poison. The person who managed the Miao village was called the Miao Patriarch. But the one who was truly respected by the Miao people and worshipped as a god was the Miao Sacred Maiden. Chapter 2364. To become the Holy Maiden of the Miao tribe. 50 years later he could directly ascend to the upper realm. Although the status of the Miao tribe in the upper realm was not as high as in the Nirvana realm, they were respected by the people of the northern continent. However, once he went to the upper realm, it was a symbol of status and strength. It was a historical record that could be recorded in the Miao tribe's genealogy. Moreover, the status of the Holy Maiden's relatives in the Miao tribe would also undergo a tremendous change. Because of this, the talented women of the Miao tribe worked hard to obtain the recognition of the ancient gu worm and become the next saintess. Coincidentally, this year was the last year of the previous saintess in the Nirvana realm. The women of the Miao tribe were all restless. They were trying their best to obtain the position of the Holy Maiden. For example, Miao Rongrong, whom Yiqing Luo met at the Battle King's residence previously. She was the daughter of the Miao clan leader, the eldest daughter of the Miao clan. He was also the strongest gu master in Miaogu. Miao Rongrong's reputation was also extremely resounding in the northern wave continent. Could be said that Miao Rongrong was basically already the next Holy Maiden. As long as the current saintess ascended to the upper realm, Miao Rongrong accepted the ancient gu worm inheritance. Miao Rongrong would become the new saintess. However, regarding the matter of Miao Rongrong becoming the Holy Maiden, there were two elders in the Miao tribe who did not approve of it. As for the reason, it wasn't written in the information. Then he read through the information again. Apart from this saintess, there was no other special information. Yiqing Luo put down the letter and raised her head. He saw Jun Qinggu looking at Peach with a gloomy face. Peach, on the other hand, was holding a piece of paper and a pen, constantly writing and drawing. Her eyes were full of joy. Clearly, Jun Qinggu had no choice but to answer Peach's question. Yiqing Luo couldn't help but laugh when she saw this situation. Even though Jun Qingwu looked cold, she was actually a very soft-hearted girl. He truly had a sharp tongue but a soft heart. Yiqing Luo didn't interrupt their conversation. He turned to look at Miao Yi, who was sitting at the side and staring blankly into space. She got up and picked up another wine glass. She walked to the corner and sat down next to Miao Yi. Miao Yi was startled. She seemed to have just realized that someone was approaching her. She jerked her head up and looked to her side. In front of him, however, was a white hand. Do you want a drink? Yiqing Luo's clear voice was extremely gentle and pleasant to listen to. Miao Yi was stunned for a moment before she reached out and accepted the cup of wine. Why do you look so distracted? Something on your mind? Chapter 2365. Yiqing Luo pinched Miao Yi's cheek. Speaking of which, your surname is also Miao. Are you in the Miao family? No problem. Miao Yi pushed Yiqing Luo's hand away and rubbed her aching cheek. There are many people with the surname Miao in the northern continent. Yiqing Luo sighed and leaned back lazily. If you are from the Miaogu family, then I don't need to go through so much trouble to set a trap for Miao Rongrong. After all, that Miao Rongrong is not easy to get along with. Miao Yi's eyes dimmed slightly but the smile on her lips became brighter. Yes, if only I am from the Miaogu family, then I can help you. The two of them looked at each other and smiled. But they didn't say a word. Another 2 days passed by. The person whom the Battle King's mansion was looking for had not been found. Everyone in the ingratiating Joy City was discussing the identity of the woman who had caused the Battle King's mansion to turn upside down for a few days. Even the royal family had intervened. There was no news about this lady in the northern continent. As for those commoners who had witnessed the conflict between Yiqing Luo and Yuan Kuang, they had all been secretly massacred by the Battle King's mansion. Because of this, no one knew the identity of the person whom the Battle King's mansion and the royal family were looking for, and the reason for it. But on this day, the matter regarding the conflict between Yiqing Luo and Yuan Kuang was spread out. Moreover, even the matter of Steward Fan being crippled and Yuan Kuang losing his fertility was spread out. When the commoners heard of this news, they almost burst into an uproar. The little marquis who was known as a child prodigy actually lost his fertility? Wouldn't the Yuan family be extinct? And this news made the people from the royal family very happy. Yuan Kuang had lost the right to have offspring, which meant the chances of the Yuan family rebelling would be reduced by half. By the time the Battle King's general found out, this news had already spread all over the northern continent. He couldn't possibly massacre everyone in the northern continent to cover up the truth of this matter. He could only suppress the anger in his heart. He secretly investigated who was the one who spread this news. While they were investigating, there was also news that the Miao family's eldest daughter, Miao Rongrong, had inadvertently revealed this matter, although it was unintentional. However, this matter was known by everyone on the northern wave continent. How could General Xuanhuan still treat Miao Rongrong as unintentional? Then he invited Miao Rongrong back to the War King's mansion. However, Miao Rongrong flatly denied it. She firmly expressed that she had never mentioned anything about the young prince. Miao Rongrong was determined. The War King general could not ask any questions. He could vaguely sense that the direction of this matter was a little strange. Miao Rongrong's face darkened. She slammed the table and stood up. Could it be that woman? Is it the work of the woman who poisoned young prince? The warlord general's eyes suddenly dimmed. That bitch is probably not in the northern wave continent anymore. Otherwise, how could she have escaped our search? Chapter 2366. The War King's expression suddenly turned solemn. His brows tightened as he looked at Miao Rongrong with a serious expression. Miss Miao, you mean? Miao Rongrong's red lips curled up slightly as she met the War King's eyes with a faint smile. War King, have you ever thought, apart from the 3,000 peach blossoms, who else has the ability to quickly spread this matter to the people of the northern continent? Her words caused the War King's hand, which was resting on the chair, to tighten. With a crack, the armrest of the chair was broken. The War King's eyes were burning with rage. That bitch. She ruined my son's life, and now she wants to destroy the War King's residence. The War King gritted his teeth and dragged the portrait to the side. In the portrait, the woman smiled in contempt. That pair of long and narrow eyes seemed to be mocking him. The War King roared and quickly tore the portrait in his hand to pieces. Who in the northern continent would have the guts to target the War King's residence? Miao Rongrong lowered her eyes and looked at the shredded paper at her feet. The shredded paper at her feet happened to be one of the woman's eyes. Miao Rongrong frowned slightly. She inexplicably felt a sense of disgust towards this eye. She lifted her foot and stepped on the paper. Miao Rongrong's words caused the War King's expression to darken. The War King naturally understood what Miao Rongrong meant. The northern continent dared to target the War King's residence and actually took action. Apart from the imperial family, there was no one else. This time, the imperial family had interfered in this matter. They were also helping them find the whereabouts of that woman. But could it be that the imperial family wasn't deliberately putting on a show for them to clear their suspicions? If that woman was from the imperial family, the War King's eyes shot out a sharp, cold light. Murderous intent swept through the depths of his eyes. Miao Rongrong clearly saw the change in the War King's emotions. She raised her lips and smiled meaningfully. Master, but why would the imperial family use such a method? That kind of poison is something that even Physician Lu couldn't detect. Behind the imperial family, is there an expert? The general's wife was frightened and immediately put her hand on the War King's shoulder. The War King's body stiffened. He thought of the day when Yuan Kuang went crazy and the general's wife was on top of him and tore his clothes. The war monarch felt extremely disgusted. That day the situation was very chaotic. Who knew? Did Yuan Kuang give the general's wife to? However, there was a guest nearby. No matter how disgusted the War King was, he endured the feeling. Speaking of which, I do have a piece of news. Miao Rongrong's fingers lightly tapped on the wooden table. The corner of his mouth curled up into a smile, revealing a trace of disdain. The expression on his face became more and more arrogant. The War King was not in the mood to pay attention to this. What news? It is said that a master has indeed come to the Northern Wave continent. His identity is very mysterious. Even our Miao tribe's Gu technique is unable to identify the master. Miao Rongrong picked up the cup of tea and lowered her head to take a sip. If Battle King really wants to find that mysterious woman, why don't you test the sovereign's intentions? Also, send someone to investigate the 3,000 peach blossoms. After that, Miao Rongrong put down the teacup and stood up. If there's nothing else, I'll take my leave first. Wait. The War King raised his hand and blocked Miao Rongrong's path. This matter has not been investigated yet. Miss Miao, please stay in the War King's residence for the time being. Also, help my son investigate if there's any way to cure him. Chapter 2367. How can this be considered as imprisonment? The War King chuckled. Young Lady Miao saved this general's only son. This general must thank young Lady Miao for saving this general's son. No need. Miao Rongrong's face darkened slightly as she pushed his arm away and was about to leave. Battle King remained motionless. Miao Rongrong frowned slightly. General Battle King, what is your intention? Since young Miss Miao has already cured Xuanhuan of his poison, then you should help Xuanhuan cure his problem as well. Battle King smiled amiably. I believe that Chief Miao will not reject my request. Miao Rongrong's eyes turned cold. She didn't expect Battle King to treat her like this. He even dared to use the Miao tribe to threaten her? Her eyes were cold as she clenched her fists. I only know how to cast spells, I am not a doctor. I can't solve Little Prince's problem. Then I can only trouble Miss Miao to stay in the Battle King's residence until Little Prince is completely healed. The War King let out a cold laugh. His tough and stern face had regained the dignified handsomeness he once had on the battlefield. Guards, send Miss Miao to Little Prince's room and keep a close watch. If there is any mistake, I will personally bring your corpse to the Miao tribe to apologize. Battle King's words directly blocked Miao Rongrong's escape route. If Miao Rongrong wanted to sneak out, Battle King would directly go to the Miao tribe to find trouble with her. Now was the crucial time for the selection of the sacred maiden. Miao Rongrong must not have any dirty secrets leaked out. Miao Rongrong naturally couldn't let Battle King bring this matter to the Miao tribe. Seeing Miao Rongrong being taken away by the guards with a gloomy face, Jun Qingwu on the roof looked at the calm Yi Qingluo, as if she already knew these things would happen. Her cold eyes flashed a trace of doubt. How can you be so sure that Battle King will imprison the Miao family? After all, the last time she was squatting in the corner, Battle King's attitude towards Miao Rongrong was extremely respectful. How could Yi Qingluo be so sure that Battle King had the guts to imprison Miao Rongrong? Yi Qingluo's body softly leaned against Jun Qingwu, because he is a Battle King. The Battle Monarch was an extremely respected person in the Northern Wave continent. Even the royal family had to give him some face. Moreover, they were on equal footing with one of the four great sects, the Elation sect. How could he possibly be willing to lower his voice to anyone? That day, Battle King had a favor to ask of Miao Rongrong. Naturally, his attitude was excellent. Now, Miao Rongrong was relying on her identity as the Miao family's young miss and the fact that she had saved Yuan Kuang. Thus, he put on an arrogant look and acted like he was in charge of everything. He even wanted to sow discord between the Battle King and the royal family. The War King was no fool. He had fought on the battlefield for many years and had always been invincible. How could it be based on his strength alone? If he didn't have a brain, he wouldn't have been able to survive until now. How could the War King not see through Miao Rongrong's plan? How could he tolerate Miao Rongrong? He could only say that Miao Rongrong thought too highly of herself. As for War King, perhaps he had never trusted Miao Rongrong. Before he caught Miao Rongrong, Battle King would never let Miao Rongrong leave. Of course, unless Miao Rongrong really had a way to cure Yuan Kuang's infertility. You're so smart. Jun Qingwu rolled her eyes. But in Jun Qingwu's heart, she really admired Yi Qingluo. She really couldn't understand Yi Qingluo's confident look, as if she was in control of the whole situation. Where did it come from? Chapter 2368. Yi Qingluo smiled sweetly. Yes, I'm the smartest. Jun Qingwu rolled her eyes at her. She was simply shameless. Yi Qingluo smiled as she lowered her eyelids and looked into the room, at General Battle King, who was discussing something with the general's wife. Yi Qingluo's slender fingers touched her chin. It's about time to show up. Now. Jun Qingwu was slightly surprised. Not now, Miao Rongrong sighed. It's not time for her to act up yet. Yi Qingluo shook her finger. Miao Rongrong was the eldest daughter of the Miao tribe leader. Outstanding strength, proud and arrogant. Such a woman, even if he forcefully brought her to the western continent and wanted her to suppress the parasite poison for Long Yunjian, it would be impossible. He was afraid that Miao Rongrong would do something in secret. After all, none of them knew how to use goo poison. To make Miao Rongrong willingly help, the only way was to take out an equivalent price to make a deal. Miao Rongrong cared about herself the most. Looking at Yi Qingluo's crafty smile like a fox, Jun Qingwu knew that Yi Qingluo still had a backup plan. And this backup plan was enough to shake Miao Rongrong, enough to make Miao Rongrong willingly follow Yi Qingluo back to the west continent. Jun Qingwu couldn't be bothered to ask what Yi Qingluo had done. Just as he was about to leave with Yi Qingluo, Jun Qingwu's gaze suddenly turned dark and gloomy. Her line of sight quickly swept across the surroundings. Following that, he grabbed Yi Qingluo's arm tightly, his expression congealed. Someone's coming. At the next instant, Yi Qingluo felt her body turning light, and under Jun Qingwu's strong tug, she had already arrived at a more secluded courtyard. Yi Qingluo still hadn't figured out what had happened. Jun Qingwu had already signaled her with her eyes to restrain her aura and not make a sound. It was rare to see Jun Qingwu so serious. Yi Qingluo's expression started to congeal slightly. Jun Qingwu must have sensed some powerful energy to have such a reaction. She, on the other hand, could not sense any abnormal energy. In other words, the source of that power had already exceeded the range of her senses? This courtyard, Yi Qingluo frowned tightly and held her breath, not daring to make any noise. Facing an unknown enemy and unknown power, Yi Qingluo naturally didn't dare to be as relaxed as before, squatting at the corner of War King's wall. He followed Jun Qingwu to the rear window of the courtyard. Just as he approached, he then heard a woman's voice, which was deliberately lowered, coming from inside the house. I've already brought your message to the warlord's mansion. I've also completed the task that you've given me. I want to leave the warlord's mansion immediately now. This voice was as arrogant as ever. It was Miao Rongrong's voice. As it turned out, this secluded courtyard was the place that the Battle King's mansion had arranged for Miao Rongrong. In other words, that powerful and mysterious force was looking for Miao Rongrong? The power in the room was too strong. The two of them didn't dare to get too close. He could vaguely hear Miao Rongrong's hysterical roar. What do you mean? Are you trying to burn the bridge after crossing it? If it wasn't for you forcing me to bring a message to the warlord's mansion to sow discord between the warlord and the sovereign, how could I be imprisoned in this damned place? I'm telling you, if you don't get me out of here immediately, our cooperation will be over. Yi Qingluo and Jun Qingwu listened attentively. Nor did he hear the other person's voice. Chapter 2369. He seemed to have received a definite answer. There was a hint of excitement in Miao Rongrong's tone. Good. As long as you help me obtain the position of Saintess and help me obtain the recognition of the ancient goo worm, I will do my best to help you with whatever you want. As soon as he finished speaking, Jun Qingwu's grip on Yi Qingluo's wrist loosened. His tense emotions also loosened up. Yi Qingluo knew that the mysterious and powerful energy had already disappeared. Let's go and take a look. Jun Qingwu lowered her voice. Following that, he pulled Yi Qingluo's hand and went closer to that tightly shut window. Jun Qingwu's fingers moved slightly. An extremely weak stream of light pulled open the window. His subtle movements were like a cool breeze. Miao Rongrong, who was in the room, did not notice at all. Through the gap of the slightly opened window, Yi Qingluo saw Miao Rongrong sitting in front of the round wooden table, with a determined smile on her lips. Clearly he had just gotten a definite answer and was in a very good mood. Yi Qingluo frowned slightly as she asked in a low voice, "Isn't Miao Rongrong the eldest young miss of the Miao family? Wasn't the next holy maiden going to fall on her head without any suspense? She still needs external help?" Jun Qingwu rolled her eyes at the series of questions. Jun Qingwu didn't answer but continued, "There are still people from the upper realm who came to the lower realm? That person's power is very strong. Even you feel pressured?" Yi Qingluo recalled Jun Qingwu's grave expression earlier as she narrowed her eyes and asked, Jun Qingwu glanced at her indifferently. When you reach the upper realm, you will naturally understand the difference between the so-called upper realm and this lower realm. Yiqing Luo shrugged her shoulders. If she wanted to go to the upper realm, it would probably take a long time. She put away these messy thoughts and looked at Miao Rongrong, who was still laughing. The regulations of the upper realm should not allow anyone from the upper realm to intervene in the matters of the lower realm. But, according to what Miao Rongrong just said, that person is interfering in the affairs of the Northern Wave Continent. Miao Rongrong's words to General Battle King today all had a purpose. It was all the will of that mysterious and powerful person. What Miao Rongrong had said to War King today, not only did he sow discord between the War King and the 3,000 peach blossoms, it was also to sow discord between the War King and the royal family. Every single word was pushing the blame for Yuan Kuang's death onto the royal family. On top of that, he even revealed that the royal family had invited a mysterious expert over. An expert that even her Miao tribe's Gu technique had a headache. It didn't matter whether the War King Xiang believed Miao Rongrong's words or not. Miao Rongrong's words would become a thorn in Battle King's heart. Both of them would leave an unerasable mark in the Battle King's heart. That person, what was the purpose of using Miao Rongrong to sow discord between the Battle King and the imperial family? I will send a message to Di Zun. Jun Qingwu retracted her gaze and said indifferently, Di Zun will be back to accompany you soon. Xian? Yiqing Luo's eyes lit up. Xian is going back to Nirvana realm? Looking at Yiqing Luo's sparkling pupils, Jun Qingwu pursed her lips. He noticed that Jun Qingwu's mood had dropped. Chapter 2370. Jun Qingwu's stiff body softened bit by bit under Yiqing Luo's soft words. Her ice-cold face was flushed red. She shook off Yiqing Luo's hand and hurriedly left. Gotcha. Jun Qingwu stepped on the withered branches in the courtyard. Both of them paused for a moment. Inside the house, Miao Rongrong screamed in panic, "Who is it?" At the same time, Miao Rongrong followed the sound and quickly rushed to the window, looking around. In the remote backyard, withered trees were overgrown and the ground was covered with yellow leaves. But there was no one. Miao Rongrong revealed a vigilant look and released her senses to sense the surrounding unfamiliar aura. Her eyes were also searching around in alarm. But after a sweep, she didn't detect any unfamiliar aura. On the ground there were no footprints. It should be the sound of the withered branches being blown by the wind. Outside the courtyard, Yiqing Luo grabbed Jun Qingwu's wrist, panting heavily. So close, our profound grades are all above Miao Rongrong, so she didn't notice. Yiqing Luo leaned against the wall and laughed softly. This was probably the first time Jun Qingwu was so embarrassed. Earlier she was actually teased by Yiqing Luo and forgot where she was. That's right, tease. She was teased by a woman. Jun Qingwu expressed that Yiqing Luo was really poisonous. Yiqing Luo looked at Jun Qingwu's face. It was a mixture of green and red. Blushing and embarrassed. She didn't tease Jun Qingwu anymore. Let's go to Peach first and tell her the news that Battle King is also suspicious of the 3,000 peach blossoms. Jun Qingwu pursed her lips tightly, obviously still in the midst of embarrassment. She didn't bother about Yiqing Luo and flew away from the Battle King's residence. TSK. Little Wu is so shy. Yiqing Luo touched her chin and smiled helplessly. Her cool and elegant persona was all gone, all gone, all gone. Another day had passed. The 3,000 peach blossoms informant passed the latest news to Yiqing Luo. Miao Rongrong was seriously ill. On the second day of being imprisoned in the Battle King's residence, she was bedridden and unable to get up. No, to be more precise, it was more terrifying than a serious illness. Because Miao Rongrong's whole body was weak. She was sweating profusely and vomiting blood. The blood he spat out was black. It was as black as ink. The entire warlord's mansion felt a chill run down their spines. But Dr. Lu couldn't find any problems. At first, the Battle King thought that it was Miao Rongrong's trick. However, every time Miao Rongrong vomited blood, her body became weaker. Furthermore, the ink-like substance that he spat out was indeed blood. Only then did the War King panic. Miao Rongrong was after all the eldest daughter of the Miao tribe. If he was in the War King's mansion and ended up like this, even if he didn't know about it, the Miao tribe would blame it on the Battle King's mansion. After wasting a whole day, Miao Rongrong could only exhale but not inhale. The War King had no choice but to head to the Miao Stockade village and request the Miao tribe leader to save Miao Rongrong's life. Less than an hour after the warlord left, A petite figure appeared in Miao Rongrong's ward. Although Miao Rongrong's mind was in a trance and she was suffering from the faint pain, she was still able to control herself. But his consciousness was still clear. When she saw that there was one more person in her room, she squinted her eyes and stared at that person with hazy eyes. It was hazy and she couldn't see the person's face clearly. Chapter 2371. Who are you? Miao Rongrong's throat was dry. The words that came out of her mouth were like a breath of air, without any sound. However, the figure by the bedside seemed to have heard her words and slowly moved a little closer. Miao Rongrong's heart was inexplicably filled with fear. Don't come over? Are you sure you don't want me to come over? The girl's clear and sweet voice, with a faint smile, flowed into Miao Rongrong's heart like a gurgling stream. That voice was extremely unfamiliar. Miao Rongrong was sure that she had never heard this person's voice before. The inexplicable uneasiness in her heart surged. She could not even feel her weak breathing. She opened her mouth, wanting to speak, but still did not have the strength to speak. That clear and sweet voice of the girl rang in her ears again. I'm the only one who can save you. If you really want to refuse me, just pretend that I have never been here today. Save her? These two words made Miao Rongrong's expression suddenly freeze. Her weak body suddenly closed her 5 fingers. Almost exhausting all the strength in her body, Miao Rongrong spat out a sentence so soft that it could not be heard. You are the one who poisoned the young prince? Yes, she had seen that portrait. The woman in the portrait was dressed in a blazing red dress. This person, the one who poisoned Xuanhuan and infected her with the remaining poison. This little bitch, she had appeared. Miao Rongrong's breathing quickened. Her weak fingers wanted to clench the quilt under her body, but she could not exert any strength at all. The petite figure placed her legs on the edge of the bed and bent down slightly. The girl's clear and beautiful face was reflected in Miao Rongrong's eyes. That face, that smile, that gaze, it completely overlapped with the woman in the portrait. Miao Rongrong was so shocked that her heart suddenly twitched violently. For a moment she could not breathe properly. The feeling of suffocation made Miao Rongrong's pale face almost pale. She fluttered her hands weakly, trying to smooth out her chest. But she could not exert any strength. Her body began to twist little by little. It seemed that at any time, if she could not breathe properly, she would completely lose the chance to breathe. Miao Rongrong's eyes widened. His ink-colored pupils gradually became empty. Miao Rongrong could almost feel that she had touched the edge of death. Oh! Suddenly a fishy smell filled his nostrils. Something was stuffed into his mouth. An indescribable smell blended with the stench. Miao Rongrong was so agitated that she suddenly sat up from the bed. She lay on the edge of the bed and vomited. Miao Rongrong vomited until her stomach ached. She leaned weakly against the headboard and gasped for breath. By the time she regained her senses, Miao Rongrong abruptly raised her head and stared venomously at Yiqing Luo. You slut! What the hell did you put in my mouth? Just thinking about the smell, Miao Rongrong had an urge to vomit. She clenched her fists tightly and fiercely punched the face of the young girl who was still smiling like a flower. A blood-curdling scream was heard. Miao Rongrong hugged her arm in pain as her body heavily knocked against the foot of the bed. What I stuffed is naturally the antidote to ease your pain. The young girl leisurely sat down by the bed. She looked like she was only 14 or 15 years old. She looked like she was obedient and could be bullied by anyone. You're tuning in to the Sword Dance in the Vast Sky YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.